Skinny Hardaway Southern T, and I'm back with another EP. And today I'm here with a highly interesting subject. This new subject is involving Terrence Bud Crawford. Terrence Bud Crawford, 3-time, 3 division champion. One-time undisputed champion. Knockout artist, Terrence Bud Crawford. Dead Terrence Crawford. Hall of Fame Terrence Crawford. If you let him tell it, Hall of Fame Terrence Crawford. And I personally think that, he will be there because his career is not done. And, if you're looking at, accolades, if you're looking at, the work put in, achievement-wise, yes, Terrence Crawford is a Hall of Famer. Terrence Crawford has, some legacy fights to be made. But all things considered, I think he's a Hall of Famer too as well. We all know Terrence. But let me tell you about a guy that you might not know. The guy on the right, without the championship belts and the divisions and the accolades and titles and all that. This guy right here is a boxer's son. His name is Brian Norman Jr. His father is Brian Norman Sr. Brian Norman Sr. was a super middleweight. Brian Norman Jr. boxes at welterweight, which is the 147-pound division. His father boxed at the 154, 160-pound division, which is middleweight. Brian Norman Jr., is a prospect. I'm not sure if he still is or, if he is for sure. But I think he works with Showtime, none the least. If he isn't, signed to Showtime, if he isn't a Showtime boxer, he most definitely, he's in a partnership thing, with Showtime. Those are the cards that he's been fighting on lately. Terrence Bud Crawford, who's the owner of B&B, which is Bud and Bomac. Bud Crawford is a fighter himself, but he also has a stable of fighters. The stable includes Jamel Herring. Jamel Herring just had a fight against Shakur Stevenson, in which Jamel Herring lost. But around, this time in the build-up to this fight, this fight was in Atlanta. Jamel Herring, B&B, Bud and Bomac, Bud Crawford, Jamel Herring, and Bomac, they were in Atlanta. In times leading up to this fight, getting sparring in, getting the workout in, getting, used to the city. Like that's what everybody do. They come into the city about a week or so early, and then, they get their little finishing touches there. They get their work in and all that good stuff, get adjusted to the city. So Jamel Herring and Bud Crawford was in Atlanta, both getting sparring, Terrence Crawford is also preparing for his fight against Sean Porter, who is also at the 147-pound division. So you got Jamel Herring there sparring for Shakur, and you got working out for Shakur, and you got Terrence Bud Crawford there, sparring and working out for Sean Porter. This man on the right, who I'm going to get into, which is what I'm about to get into, Brian Norman Jr., who I spoke on a little earlier. Brian Norman Jr. is 21-0 with 18 knockouts. He's 20 years of old. He's 20 years, my bad. He's 20 years old. He's 5'8" with a 72-inch arm reach, and he's from, of course, Atlanta, Georgia. Again, Brandon Norman Jr. has 18 knockouts, so, he's a guy that possesses power. He actually has the exact same measurables as, Errol Spence, ironically, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Errol Spence is 5'9", I think, but, outside of that 1 inch, exact same measurables. Now, this is a story that, I heard from a pretty good source. And that these sparring sessions and everything can't be talked about directly, through the fighters type deal. But, a lot of these stories do get out. And this is a story that I got, from a fight camp, from training camp, that Terrence Crawford was in Atlanta sparring with Brian Norman Jr. And in the midst of this sparring with Brian Norman Jr., what I heard was that Brian Norman Jr., got the better of Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, of course, you have some who feel, you have some who say this is false. And then I know a lot of people, personally, who says that, yes, this really did happen. Now, did he beat up Terrence Crawford? Did, Terrence Crawford have to go to the hospital? Was it a bad injury? No, it was nothing like that. It wasn't like malicious beating or nothing like that. Brian Norman Jr. just basically held his own. Brian Norman Jr. is a prospect, and he held his own against what some see as the number one pound for pound guy in boxing. You know what I mean? Is this alarming for Terrence Bud Crawford? No, I don't think so. Brian Norman Jr. is a supreme athlete. He's one of those prospects that not a lot of people know about, but you need to know about, just like the David Morrell Jr. guy. And even to, a lesser degree than David Morrell Jr. because I think more people might know about David Morrell than they do Brian Norman Jr. But Brian Norman Jr. is a serious prospect. He's one of those guys at 147 who's going to be getting his hands on one of those, belts after Earl Spence, Terrence Bud Crawford decided to leave and move up to the 154 pound division. Everybody screamed Boots, Spence, Boots versus Bud. I'm personally one of those guys who want to see Boots fight his contemporaries because there's a lot of guys up and around his age and division that he could fight. I don't think that, that's going to be something that, is going to happen at 147, Earl versus Boots or Bud versus Boots. But Brian Norman Jr. versus Boots, to get their hands on one of those belts is something that very well could happen. This is a bright welterweight prospect under the radar, but I'm telling you, sooner than later, and I'm thinking sooner now, especially with the welterweight division about to have a big shakeup in about a year. And then, with these prospects emerging, and especially with what just happened in this time that, the B&B camp spent in Atlanta in this Terrence Bud Crawford, Brian Norman Jr. sparring session. And again, I'm not saying that Brian Norman Jr. beat up Terrence Bud Crawford, but what I'm saying is there were times in this sparring session that Brian Norman Jr. did get the ups on Terrence Bud Crawford. And that's exactly what you need in sparring camp, training camp before a fight. You need good, effective sparring. This is not a knock against Bud. This is just me, reporting to y'all, what I heard through the grapevine. But that's all I got. Skinny Hardaway, Southern T. This ain't the past. This ain't the future. But this the present. That's how we rocking. And I'm out. Love.